This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This is your Can the Wolves Possibly Clear Their Minds? Leader Fan Radio Network.
What do you mean?
I don't know. KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 8 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Daylight Saving Time. Welcome back. It is a Tuesday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a decidedly miserable weekday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I am the host of the program. My name's Dan Barreiro. Guardsy produces the show. Is the rumor true he's changed his mind? He won't be in studio tomorrow because he's not even coming back to Minnesota because he was informed of just how miserable the weather is right now.
As of today, he told me he's coming in.
Tomorrow,
so yes.
Tuesday regular.
Tomorrow.
He'll be on tomorrow's show.
That's what he says.
Don't blame us, KFAN. That's his decision, not ours. We'll be with you till 6:30 tonight, and we have a lot planned today. Not surprising, I wouldn't say, under the circumstances. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open at 646-86. We could spend hours and hours on the tush push because
it's happening right now.
It's
in our backyard.
I think the jackals say it's likely we're going to get a final resolution tomorrow. It's being mulled over today, but the final resolution might not be until tomorrow. We might touch on it a little later in the show, but probably will not go wall-to-wall on it. The Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line, 64686, is available to each and every one of you. The first text has already come in. Are we all to assume you'll be working Memorial Day with a show from the cage? You most assuredly can assume it because we will be. We will be at the cage. Did people really think we weren't going to work because it was Memorial Day? In all seriousness,
I think the rest of the folks are off.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not ripping that. I'm saying it's right before the game. It makes, if there's any time to have any kind of a live show, wouldn't that be the time? Wouldn't you say?
I spoke to the boss about it today just to make sure.
He's all on board?
Yeah, we got a few things to iron out, but the intent is there to do it, and we should be ready to do it.
Intent worries me. That means we'll
be there.
Oh, okay. All right.
You'll be there for sure. It's a matter of if I'm with you the whole time.
I see. You might. Okay.
There's some things to work out that way.
Some mechanics there?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll get it done. Yeah, so I will commit 100%. If you want to walk by and wave, you can. Stick out your tongue, you can do that too. Whatever works for you, we wouldn't miss it. That'll be Game 4, correct?
Yes.
Game 3 is Saturday night.
It is.
These are all night games now. We're all in that world. 7:30 each night?
I think so. There might be a 7 mixed in somewhere, but they're all reasonable times for all you people out there.
And then Game 1 in the Eastern Conference Finals will be tomorrow night in New York, correct? At the Garden? Series will start at the Garden, if I'm not mistaken.
So. Yeah, they have
home field advantage as well. What do I mean by can the Timberwolves clear their minds? Well, we all know that you win these things, you advance in this thing called the NBA tournament by not just winning the game physically, but winning the game mentally. And sometimes that means conquering some demons that can indeed clutter your mind, can indeed sit and stand in the way. And so the challenge that I throw out to them isn't necessarily just for them. I mean, to a certain extent, that challenge exists for Oklahoma City, any team that is continuing to advance. But I think there's a specific area of mind clearing that's going to be pretty essential. And, well, do you still have the, or can you still find the Finchy sound you played yesterday at the start of the show, actually? It was good sound from Finchy after an OKC game a while ago, right? It was during the regular season.
I think it was the Feb 24 game.
Okay. And it got a lot of attention at the time, but it's getting, I'll be honest, I actually haven't noticed it being picked up nationally as much as I thought it might. But maybe I've missed it. Maybe
it got back to Dano and OKC yesterday.
It did.
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know about Stephen A. is not talking about it.
Not yet. No.
Right.
No, that's all that matters.
Exactly.
Yeah. I haven't heard Isola and Scalabrini talk about it. I'm sure our 3:30 guest, Jonny Athletic, Dateline Oklahoma City, will be able to tell us a little bit about it as well. Also, Mitch Lawrence is going to join at 4:30. Let's listen once again to some comments that the shot across the bow from Finchie, who at the time couldn't know that the Wolves would be facing Okie City for the opportunity to go to the NBA Finals, but...
Or did he?
Maybe he did.
It's so frustrating to play this team because they foul a ton. They really do. They foul all the time. And then, you can't really touch Shea. And it's a very frustrating thing, and it takes a lot of mental toughness to try to play through it. We just eventually were able to get downhill and force the issue ourselves, and we're rewarded for it.
Okay, so it's a subject again because these teams are matched up. And the question is what the Wolves players do with it. And I'm here to tell you that, as we've learned before with this team, if it's in their heads too much, they will be defeated by it. It might not be Oklahoma City that defeats the Wolves. The Wolves might defeat themselves by getting too caught up in it. What I'd like to say to your favorite basketball team is leave all of that to Finchie. Let Finchie navigate those troubled waters. Let him decide when to bark and when to back off. If we become obsessed with what we think we believe is true, it won't matter that it's true. It will defeat us. It will consume us to a point where it will get in our heads, and we will have great difficulty, I think. Oklahoma City with home ice is going to be tough enough to beat in that regard. And this is a team, how many times has Mike Conley said it? Very emotional players on this team, several of them. And when you're wired that way, you can become so consumed with this. It's happened to Naz Reid from time to time. It's happened to Jaden McDaniels from time to time. It's happened to Anthony Edwards from time to time. Those are three pretty damned important players, right? We'll agree? All of them have pretty essential roles?
Yeah.
So you have to clear your minds of it and not allow it to consume you. And to a certain extent, there's always the question, well, are they going to call it loose? Are they going to call it tight? And if they're calling it tight, you have to adjust to it in a given game. Because game to game, it can change. Quarter to quarter, it can change. Now, that's absurd. You can say, well, that's what we hate about refereeing, the inconsistency of it. But I'm here to tell you that has to be part of the Wolves' mantra moving forward. And I hope that Finchie has also put that message in their heads. There's a part of me that says the feeling out process does need to include finding out if their reputation is physical and they are allowed to do that to guard you, you have to test the waters and also attempt to be physical. But I think the Wolves are pretty physical anyway.
They are. They like the physicality.
That's why. So I think a tight whistle would hurt both teams, where Finchie will, I'm sure, be bitter if he thinks there's inconsistency. And what he brought up was Shea Shea leads the league in free throws attempted by like 100. He's way ahead of anybody else. He's mastered that art. I do think I noticed this in the Denver series. The one sneaky move that would annoy me if I were an opponent attempting to guard him is he has a really sneaky way, like when he's driving baseline, going up, and as he's going up, he kind of does that real subtle shove.
Yep.
Just to get a little bit of space. I think that should be called more on him than it is, quite frankly. So, look, I'm not saying it's going to be fair, but I'm saying you can't. This is a team that I think's made some strides in that regard, but I don't know if they've yet faced a challenge in the first two series that they're going to likely in this one, right? Because we were down. We were ahead from the beginning in the Lakers series, right? And we were down 1-0 Golden State, but then immediately turned it. And so we've not had a lot of those, you could say, crisis situations that are more likely to come up in this series. And I just don't want us to get so beaten up by that mentally, get into that so much that you end up making it easier for a really good opponent that, as I said, has some built-in advantages to beat you. I don't think you can go about your business that way. I think you have to be clever about it. I think you have to be restrained. I think you have to be smart. There may be some places to pick your spots, and I do think you need to probe how physical you can be. If I'm boiling down the number one reason, well, I'll come back with, for me, the number one reason I believe the Wolves are going to win this series. It's all kind of related to this, and it's me assuming that they're going to be good at this or get better at this mentally, that they're not going to allow it to get in the way of the goal. What is the goal? The goal is, for the first time in the history of this fractured franchise, to play in the NBA Finals. The rarefied air.
Crazy to even
of the
say
national,
out loud.
It is. It almost sounds sacrilegious, doesn't it?
It does, but they're 4 wins away.
That's what they say.
The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword happy at KFAN.com. That's your shot at winning. KFAN.com. Make the keyword happy.
Broadcast from Cage. Fallness full rage. Rocco burning sage. Wolves in 5. Finchy's wavy locks. Shea can kick rocks. The Pope likes the socks. Wolves in 5. Pretty good. They're picking up again. Game day. You see what it is? We needed game day to come because I think that's people build to that day, and that's when the creative juices really get going again. Game 1 tonight. It's on the Fan, correct?
It is. The homies are right after us at 6:30. Pregame show at 7. Homies come back for Fan Line after.
It's as good as it gets.
What else can you possibly want on May 20th, 2025?
I don't think there's much else other than correcting the record. I said yesterday, somebody had texted late in the show that the Twins game was postponed. Well, he might have known that it was going to be eventually, but it actually started last night. The Twins did start their game. In fact, they're leading it. They suspended it.
Yep.
And all of today, everything's washed out again. Yep. So now they're going with, we'll pick up the suspended game tomorrow at noon, and then we'll follow that by another game, correct? That's my understanding.
Yes, and the game that was supposed to be played today will be played in September.
That's it. Who knows? Might have
huge ramifications.
Who's to say?
Big ramifications for sure.
If I could boil down this series, there's an interesting thread to follow regarding all the national analysis of this series. And there's some people picking the Wolves. There's a lot more people, I think, now picking Okie City. And I think, look, they won 68 games. They may not have pedigree, but they've played at a very high level. And
really for 2 years.
That's true.
In the regular season. And they were the number 1 seed last year.
That's right. And then you add to that, there is a recency bias thing where they smothered. That's the first time, in all honesty, I can remember Joker looking defeated. The guy took 1 shot in the second half. And I think a lot of it was they got into him in a way.
You can go home now.
Well, that's it. Exactly. So there's that. But I think that has made people go, well, the Okie City defense against an offense that can get sloppy, can turn the ball over, that's too much of an advantage for Okie City. I don't deny those are legitimate observations, potentially. But here's what I think they're leaving out. And this is why I think the Wolves are going to win this series. I believe the Wolves defense will get into Oklahoma City in a number of significant ways that will further expose what we saw a little bit in the Denver series, which is that offense doesn't look that good to me. It didn't against Denver. Now, you could say some of it is they just missed open shots, but I'm not sure that they're going to even have. I mean, we are one of the best defenders at the three-point line, percentage-wise, over the course of the season.
Yep, in the 30s.
And I think what people aren't paying enough attention to is how good against this kind of a lineup the Wolves will be defensively as well, that they are going to take a lot of things away from Okie City. They may not take Shea, but I'm sure their feeling is we don't really have to. But if we take away options 2, 3, 4 on a regular basis, and if we also don't feel we got to run a second person at Shea because we think we're going to be able to guard him enough, then I think that's the underrated part of this story nationally. The Wolves defense, when it goes Doberman on the bit, as it did last year and has at times this postseason as well, they may not be quite as good as what Oklahoma City has accomplished, but they're awfully good. And when you factor in, it's against an offense that may not have turnover issues, but I just don't think looks particularly well run all the time against lesser defenses. I think that's the X factor people are not paying enough attention to.
Their most effective thing offensively, it goes in tandem with the fact that they turn over teams a lot defensively, is they don't turn the ball over very much. That's one of their huge strengths, right? So
That's
their
true.
margin is they get so many more extra possessions than other teams
And
do.
they run off of a lot of those, yeah.
Because they're smart with the ball, and then they turn you over.
Yeah.
Now, Shea has had huge games. I don't want to go into the regular season series because I do think it's meaningless, but I will say it this way.
Well, Randall was not in 3 of the 4 games, correct?
Yeah,
As
I think
understand it.
Gobert
Several
missed
other
at least
people.
3.
Yeah, exactly.
DiVincenzo missed some. Chet was not in some games on their
so
side.
it works both ways.
So I don't really want to go in on it, but Shea has had big games. They have done anything but shut Shea down. Difficult to say. Probably harder to do. And the Wolves have still come out on top historically the last couple of seasons. Even though Shea has really good numbers, I think that speaks to your point that the Wolves are okay, no pun intended, letting other guys potentially beat them. Either letting Shea get his, getting the ball out of his hand, whatever it is. To your point earlier about the Wolves not getting over their skis and out of their minds about the officiating, I think it's a big Joe Ingles series. Coming out on the court as what would he be, the 7th assistant coach? Because you've got Micah, you've got Pablo, you've got Corliss, you got C. Hines, who everybody loves. Ingles, that's his role, right? Is basically the team psychiatrist.
No question.
Whether it's Ant, Rudy.
Talk him down.
He talked Randall off the ledge.
Yeah.
Randall talked about that when Finchie benched him and they got into an argument. Guys like that, the older guys, Conley's obviously going to have a role in that too, but I do think Ingles he's going to have to be the guy that says we can't get over emotional with this thing, because Shea is going to get the calls. For sure,
you almost have
is.
to assume it,
and I'm sure it's frustrating. And that was Finchie's whole bit of the soundbite, is that OKC fouls all the time, and then on the flip side, Shea goes to the line more than anybody else. So,
which a lot of people around the league,
of course,
believe and agree with. By the way, so
anyway, go Joe Ingles.
Yeah,
he's my X factor.
It's a sneaky X factor, but it speaks to you have to have those internal voices working on yourself, and then if you can have a little help from wily veteran guys like that, then all the better. That doesn't mean you play robotic. It doesn't mean you don't play with emotion. This is a team that needs to play with a certain edge and emotion, like a lot of teams, right? There's no question about that. But you do have to control it. You do have to compartmentalize it enough and not get so consumed by it that you exacerbate the problem. You instead of having 2 stupid fouls, then you add, out of frustration, a 3rd stupid foul, and then you find yourself on the bench as well. Building them up, right, 612 guy, so you can tear them down. We know your game. Well, I'm capable of that, but it's honestly what I believe regarding, and if I had to pick, it is hard for me. I'm tempted to pick the Wolves in 7 because I do think it's a long series, but then there's that question of, is that likely? You're going to go, the Wolves did it in Denver last year to the defending world champions.
1 year ago today.
So, is it impossible? No. But I don't think Wolves in 5. I don't think it's that kind of series, even though all the limericks are fun. So I will say, like Sam Mitchell does, who's probably going to join us later this week, I'm going to go Wolves in 6. Before I ask you for your official prediction, if you had to categorize or I guess rank for you, for Guardsy, the top 3 factors that you think will be key to the Wolves pulling this off, that are crucial to the Wolves pulling this off. They can be collective things. They can be individual players. You can take it wherever you want. What's in Guardsy's top 3?
Let's take turnovers off the board because that's the obvious one, right? The overarching one. Foul trouble for Jaden, because even though they have other guys to guard Shea enough, and I think they are going to, I don't think they're going to make Jaden guard him the whole 45 that he's out there, right? I think they are going to throw different guys at him.
Right.
Foul trouble for Jaden kind of goes into my next one, is that for me, it's about which of the colony support. Because the other thing we haven't talked a ton about is they have good guys to guard Anthony Edwards as well.
They do.
Whether it's Jay Will, whether it's
Absolutely.
or I guess we call him Dub. I guess the OKC people call him Dub. So whether it's Dub or Dort, bits like that, they have a lot of guys that they're going to cycle onto Edwards as well. So the colony's going to have to be big. Jaden has been outstanding this entire postseason, not just defensively, but offensively. He's had so many stabilizing baskets where the game, these big leads that the Wolves have had, maybe a 15-point lead's gone down to 9. All of a sudden, Jaden just has a nice little drive and a smooth bucket, or gets fouled, or a dunk, whatever it is. So Jaden's foul trouble, to me, is an important one, but not for the reason that you think. Defensively, obviously, but offensively as well. And it really does just come down to which Naz Reid are we going to get, which Dante DiVincenzo are we going to get, and probably which Julius Randle are they going to get. Is this because everybody's also kind of waiting for the clock to strike midnight on Randle?
That's true. That's a big,
and I don't think it will. Maybe it will for stretches. Maybe there'll be a game where he goes sideways. But I think he's played so well for so long now, not just these 2 series. I think he can expect a certain level out of himself, and I think the Wolves can too.
I'm very curious, and I know we'll talk about this next segment with Johnny, who he thinks Okie City will put on Randle. Is it Dort? I don't know. But they like the Wolves. They got a lot of options. They got a lot of ways that they could indeed go. I do think this: if Randle can be as commanding a presence as he has been through the first 2 series, they're going to the big dance. They're going to the finals. I honestly do believe he can be that crucial. That's a big if, though, because we see things. He's being celebrated rightly, but we've seen how things can change series to series. This is a different challenge completely. And my guess is, by the way, by his own ascension this way, they're going to put more emphasis on him than they might have.
Big time.
The better you play, the more people start going, oh, okay, wait a minute. We got a couple of plans that we weren't going to do with him, but now we think we pretty much have to. Somebody is saying, look, OKC can hit open shots, unlike the Lakers and Warriors. Well, yes and no. I mean,
they went 7 with Denver.
They regular season were a 39% shooting 3-point team. They're at 32% postseason. They've missed a lot of shots. Shea's one weakness is he's in the, I think, upper 20s on 3-point shooting. So, yeah, now maybe you could say, well, that's likely to change. They're better than that. But they have not shot particularly well, and I do think the Wolves are, generally speaking, pretty good at defending the 3-point line. All right, we'll, as I said, talk to Mitch Lawrence, get his view, kind of a national perspective at 4:30. We'll get the Jonny Athletic local perspective. He is already, of course, in Okie City for tonight's game. We'll talk about some of the matchups as he sees them, like who's going to guard who. Just a lot of late stuff that has come into his head regarding this particular game 1. And then we'll get into a little bit about what he wrote about most recently regarding Chris Finch and how a very long time ago he was deprived of his dream high school coaching job.
Pretty wild.
And that started the chain that has left him here ultimately.
It's basically, not to step on the touchdown call, the equivalent is if I was the Dyna Athletic director and I didn't hire a Hopkins guy.
Pretty much.
That was the equivalent, as stupid as that sounds.
Man.
It's time for Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic. And he's on with Dan Barreiro right now.
Questions for John Krasinski, who is already in the belly of the beast. Dateline, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line 64686. That's 64686. Johnny, brought to you by, of course, RBC Wealth Management. We were just chatting a little bit before the break about the Randle factor and the way he's emerged. Pretty obvious storyline thus far. But let me broaden it out on the basis of a texter who was listening and responding. He suggests, this is looks like, is it 952 guy? Let me double check for the record. Very important. I want to properly identify him by area code. 952 guy. This series comes down to which number 2 outplays the other. Randle versus Williams. Can we simplify it to that level?
I mean, probably, I would say, Dan, because I do think that the Wolves' best chance of winning this series is that you get Ant in that playmaker mode where he scores in the mid-20s, high assist numbers, low turnovers, that sort of thing. And then you get Randall with his physicality kind of helping to stem the tide that the Thunder will always go on these runs and turn the ball over and get out in the open floor, hit a couple of threes. And Randall is going to be so important to, getting them a few buckets here and there just to let them get through those difficult periods in every game that come against the Thunder. I would broaden it out just a little bit, though, Dan. I do think it's supporting cast versus supporting cast because I think Naz Reid's going to have a big series. I think Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker are going to have to hit threes like they haven't throughout the first part of these playoffs. And if they do that, I think they're going to be in good shape because the Thunder is deep. They certainly can throw a lot of bodies at you, but they have guys that are young and unproven. And I think if the more veteran level players at every, level 2, 3, 4 down through 6, 7 are, kind of show up the way they're capable of, I think the Wolves are in great shape.
You're talking about the Ant Colony.
The Ant Colony, exactly right.
The Ant Colony on this show. It's the Ant Colony. That's what matters.
If they are dutifully following him all the way through, it'll be great.
100% true for sure. So, it's interesting because this is another example of, I think, regular season probably means very little, right? Because I think Randall was it 3 of the games? And Rudy was out for a couple of them as well?
Randall, Rudy, and Dante all missed, I think, all 3 of the 4 games.
Yeah, so you can't really get much out of that. What does your gut tell you is the likely who are the Thunder likely to assign the duty of dealing with Randall?
I think that he's going to see Jalen Williams quite a bit and maybe even Alex Caruso because Caruso had a lot of success on Jokic, unbelievably enough in Game 7. And part of that is that NBA referees let little guys beat up on big guys a lot more than the other way around. And so I do think that you will see Caruso, you'll see Jalen Williams. You might also see a little bit of Chet Holmgren, a little bit of Hartenstein. They have a bunch of different kind of size dudes that they can throw at him to give him different looks. And so this is going to be a lot bigger assignment for Julius Randle, even than Golden State, which is very good defensively. But I think that there's just going to be so many different looks that he gets in this series that it's going to be a different kind of challenge for him. How do the Wolves thread the needle on one important subject? We played the sound yesterday. In fact, we played it again earlier in the show from Finchie regarding the last time I think the Wolves played OKC, where he basically hammered the officiating and said, you can't touch Shea, and they foul all of the time. Now, that might be true. There are a lot of people around the league who I think objectively feel that might well be the case. But there's that fine line about how you deal with it without it consuming you mentally to a point where you lose the battle and you lose the war. So how do the Wolves thread the needle there? Yeah, I think Chris Finch gave us a little bit of a preview of their initial approach, at least this weekend when we talked to him after practice. And he is often a politicker. He will not hesitate to criticize officiating or anything of that nature. But at least at the start here, his line was that this deep into the playoffs, you get the very best referees. You get the most experienced guys who understand how to do this, guys and women who understand how to do this and do it the right way. And so we're not concerned about that. We will see if that tenor and that tone continues, if Shea is picking up all sorts of fouls and touch fouls early in Game 1, and if the Wolves are getting mugged and not getting the calls. But I think that Chris Finch is trying to prepare his team mentally for getting into this kind of a fight and knowing that you're going to be frustrated at times and you have to let that go. The other thing, Dan, that I've been saying all playoffs is the Wolves like to play physical. Yes. So they need to play physical. Yes. Like fight fire with fire. Correct. Exactly. If Oklahoma City is slapping at you and gnawing at you and doing all those things, go right back at them and do the exact same thing to them. And one thing that the Thunder do very well is they get handsy very early to try to establish the rules of engagement. The Wolves should do the exact same thing and really fight fire with this thing.
Speaking of Shea, a texter asks, does Jalen get any time in this particular series? Jalen Clark. Is there any chance there's a wild card move by Finchie defensively to just, throw somebody in who doesn't even know any better, but to just attempt to harass a player as accomplished already, obviously, as Shea is?
It's certainly possible, Dan. I would not call it likely, to be frank with you. I mean, I think that Chris Finch really likes his 8-man group. He really trusts it. Now, I think that there is a very real possibility that we see either Jalen Clark, who did have a little bit of success against Shea in the regular season, or Terrence Shannon, who played very well against the Thunder when a couple of guys were out injured, because you might just get in foul trouble. Like, that's a possibility that Jaden McDaniels or Nickeil Alexander-Walker or DiVincenzo or, any number of guys are going to pick up fouls, Naz Reid, and so they're going to have to go to their bench a little quicker and expand it a little bit more if that happens. But I believe that that's the most likely scenario that we see something like that is if it's in case of emergency. And then if they play well, we'll see how it goes the rest of the series. But Chris Finch has a pretty tried and true track record. These are the guys that he trusts. These are the guys that he believes in. And so I think he's going to stick with those guys primarily early on in the series. Is
it going to be mainly Jaden, you think, on Shea?
I think so. What I'm really interested to see, Dan, is that, how much zone do they play? Because the zone really worked well for them. And they didn't play much zone during the regular season at all, but by far the most zone they played was against Oklahoma City. It worked really well for them in the big comeback win in Oklahoma City, and that really flummoxed them. And the Thunder at times looked very uncomfortable with it against the Denver Nuggets in the second round. And so we will see how much the Finch wants to deploy that, because the other part about playing zone is you usually don't do that with Rudy Gobert out there, and they didn't have Rudy for so many of the games in the regular season. If they stay manned up, I do think you're going to see Jaden on Shea quite a bit, and I do think that they will try and mix and match Jaden and Nickeil, because Nickeil has had some success with him in the past as well, and so they'll try and wear Shea out that way. But I do want to see if they do pop a little bit more zone than we're used to seeing from the Timberwolves, just because it works so well for the Nuggets.
Jonny Athletic, Dateline, Oklahoma City, Wolves, and the Thunder, Game 1, all the action tonight on the Fan. This is basically an extended pregame show to the Howlin' with the Homies pregame show, then the regular pregame show, then the game, and then the postgame show. So it's all live and local on the Fan pretty much all night long. What is Rudy's, they got two big men, obviously, two very different kinds of big men, you could say, but nevertheless, they can play, they wanted to play bigger after what happened to them last year. So what's Rudy's role in this series?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really to crash the offensive glass and create opportunities, second chance opportunities, both for himself and for other Wolves. In addition to being a deterrent at the rim when Shea gets into the paint, and you make it as difficult as possible. But one of the little, kind of holes in the armor for the 68-win Thunder team is they have shown that they can be vulnerable to offensive rebounding and to second chance opportunities. True. And so I think Rudy, to stay on the floor in this series, Rudy has to crash the offensive glass and be just a menace down there in terms of grabbing missed shots and putting them up himself, or getting second chance shots for other teammates. If he cannot do that, if that is a struggle for him, then I think you are going to see a lot more of the Naz Reid and Julius Randle combination in terms of a sleeker, quicker, more offensively potent lineup. Naz Reid has had some big games against the Thunder, and so I think Chris Finch wants Rudy to be really effective in that role, but if not, we have seen that he has the cojones to sit Rudy down and play smaller if he needs to.
They love to run off turnovers, obviously. They certainly made that clear, if it wasn't already, in Game 7 against Denver. Do we want to run on them? What do we want to do pace-wise?
Yeah, I think so. I do think so. I think they want to run and they want to get easy buckets because the Thunder are an incredible defense. The more you can get out and get to the rim, where it's one-on-one type of situation or a two-on-one situation, that limits the Thunder's ability to jump passing lanes, to swipe at the ball and get turnovers that way in the half court. And so I do think you're going to see Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley, a lot of those guys, if they get those rebounds, pushing off of misses and trying to get out and get easy looks in transition, whether that is three-pointers or whether that's going right to the basket. But I think it would behoove the Wolves to try to play a little faster. They have had some success with that because just letting the Thunder sink their teeth into you in the half court, that's really, really difficult way to make a living against this team.
Everybody has talked about minimizing turnovers. The Wolves have had a propensity in the series that they won convincingly, still being a little way too loose with the ball. We know Oklahoma City's strength is to take the ball away. We saw what they did with Denver. So we can vow it all we want, be tighter with the ball, be more disciplined, don't give it up. But how do you actually make that a reality? How challenging is it going to be if a team has had those habits? Can they snap out of it? At a moment's notice, given the opposition is so good and so resourceful on that very issue defensively.
Yeah, it's my biggest concern for the series, Dan, because especially when Mike Conley goes off of the floor, and if Conley's playing low 20s minutes, there's going to be lots of time in this game where he is not on the floor. And that is when we have seen Nickeil Alexander-Walker, DiVincenzo, and a lot of these guys really struggle in the backcourt with pressure. And nobody does it better than the Oklahoma City Thunder. And so I asked Nickeil about that at shoot-around today. How do you combat that ball pressure that you're going to face? And he said the key was just to be clean, simple, and sharp. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to get fancy. Don't try to cross over, do all those kinds of things and dribble around it. You have to make quick, clean passes and get the ball up the floor and get it out of your hands before they can really the piranhas can kind of swarm you. And so, I just think they're going to have to make very fast decisions and not try to do too much. When they do that, that's when the avalanche starts coming down the mountain, and then they're in real trouble.
I'd mentioned earlier, I say a lot of people, but a few people are picking the Wolves to win this series in 6 games. That for me, what leads me to that conclusion, notwithstanding what you just said, which is a very legitimate concern and could if the series is going to go the other way, that's likely going to be a big reason why. But I think what's underrated a little bit nationally is what I think the Wolves themselves can do defensively if they're playing right, if they are in Doberman mode, and they because Oklahoma City's offense did not impress me through the playoffs thus far, especially against Denver at key points. Now, you could say they missed a lot of open shots, but they've missed a lot of shots. I mean, their three-point shooting, nowhere near as good as it was in the regular season. And their offense, to me, you can get into it. You can confuse it. And to me, that's what the Wolves have to remember. That really was, if you go back to a year ago, obviously, that was their calling card in the postseason, was it not? When they were at their best, they were just getting into the other team.
Yeah, I've seen some of the picks nationally of Thunder in 5, and it blows my mind. Like they just needed 7 games against an inferior Denver team to finish them off. The Denver Nuggets are not as good as the Timberwolves, especially defensively. And so I just think this is a long series. I do think the Wolves, I've said Wolves in 7 because I just don't think home court advantage matters as much in the NBA these days. But I think the Wolves can win it. And here's the thing, you look at the Thunder, and they're a great team. They've been unbelievable. Won 68 games in the regular season, an incredible defense, all of these things. But you know what, Dan? The Wolves are 30-6 in the last 36 games with Julius Randle on the court. You know what that translates to over a full season? 68 wins. This is a very, very good Timberwolves team that is versatile, that can defend at an incredibly high level, much higher than the Denver Nuggets could, that can beat you in many different ways. There may be a game, including tonight, where they do get blown out,
absolutely.
where the Thunder hit a bunch of threes. But these guys have proven to be resilient, and they can weather that storm, and they can figure things out over the course of a long series. So, yes, I think that the Wolves are going to win. That's where I'm at right now.
Linwood Township guy with a good question. Who guards Ant tonight? Who do they use on Edwards?
Yeah, they usually use Lou Dort on Edwards, and he does a great job. His physicality, he is a big, strong dude that really tries to beat Ant up, and he has done a very good job against Anthony Edwards historically. So I do think this is going to be another series like the Lakers series and like that last game against Golden State, where Ant is just going to have to be mature, patient, and find his spots, but also empower his teammates, because he's going to step into the ring with Lou Dort, and it's going to be a battle. And so if they're going to make it hard on him, and when Dort's not on him, it'll be Caruso or someone else that is or Cason Wallace, who are very, very good. So he's got his work cut out for him in this series. But Lou Dort is one of those guys across the league that really kind of gets into Ant and gives him issues. And
as you said, I mean, the Denver defense wasn't as awful in the postseason as it often was regular season. I think for stretches they could kind of put it together, but it's not a great defense at all. And yet Oklahoma City did look like they were struggling for significant periods offensively as well. And that's why I think that's an important advantage that the Wolves they have to press. They have to make that a big part of what they do if they're going to win.
Yeah, I do think that one thing that has happened over these playoffs is that they have sort of reformed their identity. And, they were good defensively in the regular season. They weren't, they were, I think, ranked 6th in the league in defense in the regular season. That's really good. But they were not at the level they were going into the playoffs last year. And they were not at the level that completely dismantled the Nuggets, in game 2 of that series. But we have seen stretches of this Wolves team where they look closer to that, where Rudy is roaming the paint, where Jaden McDaniels is locking down on the perimeter, where Anthony Edwards is sticking in front of people. They just have a lot of bullets to fire on that end of the court, and I think they have embraced it. They certainly want to score. They want to get out there and hit threes and do all of those things, but they are very comfortable if this is a game played in the 90s and trying to just slug it out that way. That's been kind of their calling card, and I think it's been what they have rediscovered here over the first 2 rounds of the playoffs.
They're the Wolves. I don't have to tell you, they're a streaky shooting team, and they just got to hope they're in a stretch where they get 2 or 3 games where they go, we're hitting those shots. I mean that's going to go a long way towards this as well. Let me ask you about Conley. Last time we had Mike on, one of the messages he was delivering to us, and I think to the team before he talked to us about it, was we can't be cavalier about any single game, including game 1. The notion that it's a long series and sometimes you got to play into it, that sounds good because obviously you don't want to overreact and wallow if you don't play well in game 1. But his point is, if game 1's there, grab it, man. You don't wait and assume, we're going to have 3 or 4 more opportunities, because obviously the lesson from a year ago against Dallas was that wasn't the case. That's when the series, if we look back on it, even though it was a 5-game series, let's face it, that's when the Wolves lost that series. It was early in that series.
Yeah, I mean, shockingly, I agree with Mike Conley on his basketball takes. He's actually kind of smart. But I think especially, Dan, it is being respectful of the Thunder.
Yes.
They are a great team, and if you have them, if there is an opportunity, you have to take it, because you just don't know when the next one is coming around. And so I do think that, they were good in the Warriors series. They weren't great. But I honestly believe, Dan, in being in that locker room and being around that team, one of the reasons that they were just fine in that series was that they knew deep down in their hearts that the Warriors couldn't beat them. That without Steph, that they were not going to be able to score, that they didn't have to be worried about Golden State. These guys have to be worried about Oklahoma City in a major way. And so they're going to have to go into all of these games with an edge, knowing that, yes, if the door opens, you better walk through it, because it is going to take a monster effort to beat these guys. If they do win, which I said I believe that they can and they will, but it will not be beating the Lakers in the first round. It will not be beating the banged up Warriors in the second round. This is a heavyweight fight, and when you can knock them out, you have to knock them out. You can't leave anything to chance.
What is the moral of today's Jonny Athletic piece on Chris Finch?
Yeah, just kind of his stubbornness has served him well. And when you look at the way that he has navigated this season, there was so much pressure and criticism early on in the season about Julius Randle, start Nasri, sit Julius, it's not working. You bench Mike Conley, put in Dillingham, this is not working. There was expand the rotation, play the younger guys a lot more. And Chris Finch just really has this sort of vision of what basketball needs to be, and this free-flowing kind of nirvana type of a vision. And he was not going to compromise that. He isn't compromising that with Anthony Edwards. He is pushing him to play a style where I think other coaches would very much dumb it down for him and just make it much simpler and more straightforward, whereas Finch is pushing him to kind of really think the game and see things on a different level. And so what's happened these last 2 years is that because Finch sticks to his guns the way that he does, the team gets better as the season goes along. And he does not panic in the face of criticism in the fishbowl that we put him in. And he has been validated by it. You can disagree with him. You can have, misgivings, but by and large, this is a guy who has a real clear-eyed picture of what this team needs to do. And he's gotten them now to 2 straight Western Conference Finals. The first time a Minnesota team has been to back-to-back Final Fours in the pros on the men's side since 1981. It's an incredible accomplishment.
Have you located yet any of the school board members who apparently are the reason he did not get the high school head coaching job back in Pennsylvania that he had been living for forever?
Yeah, I have not, but if you look at the Athletic store and in the comments, there are people that are saying, "Hey, I'm a Reading resident. This does not surprise me at all with the politics that are in this area." So, but I will tell you, Dan, it was so fun to listen to Chris Finch tell that story, because you can tell it still bothers him.
Yes.
You can tell that, oh, you're passing me over, now look what I've done, kind of thing. He has a very strong sense of self, but he said, I probably would have stayed in that job forever. I probably would have, set down roots in my hometown. Hometown boy makes good. You're teaching and doing all that. And these guys didn't like me because I played for the wrong school. Now look at it. And you could see a twinkle in his eye as he was relaying that story. He very much enjoyed having the last laugh.
It's a terrific opening anecdote to today's piece. I'm not going to give the rest of it away. I'll let people fill in the details by going and reading it. And if you get a new subscription to The Athletic, all I ask for, Jonny, is maybe 10% if there's like a big surge on the basis of this conversation.
Can we ever get a hat?
Well, yeah.
A shirt,
how about a hoodie?
Beanie, anything.
I think, are there athletic hoodies?
Hoodie, that's way too rich.
That's probably too exorbitant.
Just one hat.
Yeah. You keep promising it.
Branded bills.
I can see what I can drum up here.
You haven't done it, though. You keep talking about it for years. You still haven't done it.
Well, you guys have been such nice supporters of us.
Yeah.
Such, doubling down on us, essentially. And maybe it is time for something to come through on that regard.
For something, for sure.
Hey, Jonny, at 4:30, we're having probably our favorite national NBA writer on, Mitch Lawrence. Are you going to passively aggressively tweet when we have him on in 30 minutes?
Probably will.
That we're not mentioning you?
I love Mitch Lawrence. It's great radio. I just like to remind people that, I'm here every week. Okay. I don't just come in when the Wolves are in the playoffs and doing well and all these things. I'm here with you every single week, rain or shine, summer, winter, fall, just a little reminder of who has always had your back.
How many times have you come into studio?
If you just change the time of your show for me, that would be
That'd
great.
be helpful.
Like,
yeah.
I'm a family man, Dan. I have kids.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
a
I
good
got to be a father first.
Well, it's like, there's that who just won the PGA?
Scotty Scheffler.
So there a lot of people are doing the Tiger comparison, and then we had the stat yesterday that he'd have to win to match Tiger over the first 200 golf matches he was in. He'd have to win 57 of them. For you to catch up with Kessler in studio, you could come in 57 consecutive weeks, I think, and still not match him. So there you have it. I mean, it's up to you. It's your conscience.
Maybe like Scheffler, maybe I need to bring my 12 and 10-year-old and throw my reporter's notebook on the ground and let them play with it or something while I'm in there just to entertain them.
More than welcome to hang out in the studio.
We love your kids.
Yeah, we'd have them. That's no problem. Lastly, any late steam or dirt we need to get to? Any little controversies? Any little things that kind of caught your attention as we approach game time tonight?
I mean, I always hate to do this, Dan, but Rudy's name has been out there in his personal life a little bit, with things that he was dealing with. And I do think that affected him early in the Lakers series, when it all was kind of unfolding. And you saw, he could catch the ball at all. It was awful. And so I just wonder about that. And I do think that there's been a little bit of time and distance between some of those things. And so I think he's has a really good focus,
right.
and he feels, we've talked to him. He looks like he's at peace and not bothered by things. So, something I'll be watching early on because it just came out into the public this last week or so. Again, nothing criminal or anything, but just kind of the things that happen between couples. So that's something that I'm watching a little bit, but I think he's in good shape that way.
Toughest crowd in the National Basketball Association for a road team?
Yeah, it's a great crowd, Dan. That will be a difference because the Lakers crowd and the Warriors crowd are both kind of hip with it and I want to see and be seen. But when you saw the difference between Target Center and what those things were, it was stark. This one is going to be rabid. So they're going to feel an entirely different environment tonight, and they'll be ready to roll on this one for sure.
I want a couple flagrant ones tonight. Is that wrong of me?
Woo! Little McHale?
Not flagrant two, just flagrant ones. That's all, just to set the tone, we're serious about this. This is going to be this. I think this could be a drag out kind of a deal, right? This could get very, very chippy.
I'm expecting wild swings, Dan.
Yeah.
A big win for OKC, a big win for Minnesota, going back and forth. That's what I think is going to happen. And so managing those emotions, but also, I do think that it would be good for the Wolves to flex their muscles here in game one.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, we're a 6 seed, but we're coming for you. That kind of thing. And just put a little doubt in the back of the Thunder's minds. We'll see if they do that.
What I would recommend too is if Randall can arrange a collision, like he did with Luka early in the Lakers series where it was a legitimate play, you couldn't get mad at him, but he just rams him, hits him at ramming speed, for God's sake. And Luka didn't even know he knew what city he was in for a couple of minutes.
Hey, you come over the middle.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So, there might need to be a message delivered on that front. And, I can't imagine the history, the flailing that Shea would go through if Randall hit him, because you don't even need to touch that guy and he's flopping all over the place. So if Randall actually put a shoulder into him, he might end up in the third row.
Have fun tonight, Johnny. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I appreciate it as always. John Krasinski, Jonny Athletic, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management.